Welcome to Attack of Opportunity.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Attack of Opportunity. I am your host, GM Jeff Ball, and with me today, I am pleased, continuing our Paizo, Pathfinder, Starfinder angle that we're trying to work through here. I have Sam McIntyre. I hope I'm saying that right.
McIntyre.
Mr. McIntyre. No, we couldn't get Mr. McIntyre, so we have McIntyre. Sam
That's
McIntyre.
right. I've heard all the versions.
Oh, God, comment is fun. This is a running joke with my... Sam, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Now, if you don't recognize the name or that stunning beard we got going on here, Sam is with the Campaign Notes podcast, and we will get into that, talking about the podcast soon. But first, I mean, the reason we dragged him on the show, you know why, the very first question that we love to ask all of our victims is, Sam, how did you know that you were first a geek, a nerd, you know, one of us?
I can definitely say started extremely early, because earliest memories, all I can remember on that kind of note is being very into the kind of, you know, King Arthur, you know, the fantasy books. And then I think it was like 96 when my parents got myself and my brother our first like portable game consoles. Like I had the Game Boy, he had the Game Gear. And so it pretty much just built from there, where everything I kind of started to get interested in was in some way fantasy related, you know, kind of nerd, as you would think. Like I did band, I did all the classic kind of outcast things if we were living in an 80s high school movie.
I was there.
But
I'm an 80s kid. Sorry. That's old, man, dude. I went to high school in the 80s. Sorry, no, not looking to profile and stereotype. I have got some flack about this show, about like a negative stereotypity, but for this show, like from my perspective, we're trying to out you, Sam. Like, it's cool to be a geek these days. It's chic to be a geek, you know? And it was just kind of like, you know, was there a defining moment? Was there a gateway drug? You were talking about the Arthur Legend series as like a book series and a video game. I mean, you already started talking about the video games. But was there a gateway drug that led you directly into the tabletop RPG?
So as far as tabletop stuff goes, I didn't start getting into Dungeons and Dragons until 3.5, and I did that with we were in high school. It was me, Ross, one of the members of the podcast, and you know, just some friends of ours in high school who would, you know, go over and play things like we used to play with our talking about, to make a quick diversion, talking about the kind of stigmas of different things. We went to a very interesting high school, because it was an art school here in North Carolina, where you kind of didn't have the traditional high school cliques and everything. You had these you had the drama kids, you had the chorus kids, the band kids, like all, but it was all sorts of different arts, and so everyone had their own kind of
like the TV show
geekiness. Fame. Yeah. and so we were doing tech theater for some of the musicals and things that we were doing at the school, and we used to, after school, play with our tech theater teacher DMing for us, and we had to say at the time, because it wasn't allowed, that we were a science fiction fantasy like book club. Like that we were a school club that would get together and read fantasy books, when all we were doing was playing Dungeons and Dragons. I think 3.5 at that point. It might have been 4. I know when I started, I think 4th edition was maybe 6 months from coming out, something like that. So we got started with 3.5, but that was definitely my kind of first foray into the...
We don't generally talk about 4th edition. Those were dark years. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they were. No, that's the first thing I started DMing in, and whew, not the best kind of intro.
It has its own charm. I mean, we play,
for sure.
We play the Star Wars Saga edition rule set for our Wii Shop podcast, and it apparently was the prototype that came out to model, and then they made 4th edition. But so there you are, your secret society club at high school, branding it some kind of innocent book club, when this you're talking about the 90s, so the Satanic Panic was just about over thanks to Harry Potter movies making geeky things cool, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
So in North Carolina, how long have you been a gamer? Like, how long have you been?
Like I said, the day was December 25th, 1996, when we received our first gaming systems, and this is where I think myself and my brother grew up kind of in not the golden age, because there's not a single one, because video games have kind of perpetually kept going up until the last 3 years, but you had the Super Nintendo kind of reaching the end of its lifespan and all the terrific games on that, and then you get to transition to the N64 right after that. So you're growing up and you're 5-6 years old and you're playing on the Super Nintendo, and then all of a sudden these 3D games start coming out, and it was terrific. And so, like, I even remember it was the Game Boy game I got. It was the first game I ever got. It was the Mario and the 7 coins, I think it was, or 7 stars or whatever. It was just an old standard Game Boy Mario game. But we went from that to, me and my brother played Smash Brothers when it came out. We played all of that different stuff. And so we were always playing something. We always had a gaming console, and that's kind of how when we wanted to spend time together, we would do that.
Did you manage to dig up RPGs or like anything? Like, usually people say, their first thing was like Zelda and Ocarina of Time or whatever. And I remember my father not being able to afford the first Commodore 64. We bought a VIC-20 and they had a cartridge game, and it was all wordplay. Like, it was like, you come to a crossroads, what do you do?
Like Zork.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd play, you'd type in your answer and that kind of thing, and then from there, we just kind of hooked. Was there a specific, like, a favorite RPG?
And that's, I always really liked RPGs in general, just because I liked the feeling of kind of character progression like that. Zelda was an early one, honestly one of the earliest, and I hope the internet doesn't accuse me of being a fraud. Illusion of Gaia is not a standard RPG, but it kind of is, but I don't know like modern genre classifications. It was a Super Nintendo game, and it was just like a top-down, it wasn't turn-based, it was actual like swing your sword, hit enemy type game. And it was
like a good RPG to me.
Yeah, and it was terrific because the soundtrack was amazing, but it took you through like the ancient wonders of the world, and there was a whole kind of interlinked story going on in there with some kind of secret mystical stuff. Very, very, very cool game.
All right.
And whenever we would go over to my grandparents' house when we were really young, that's where they had the Super Nintendo, and so that was my brother's favorite game. And so I would, because there's one TV, one Super Nintendo, someone has to watch. Not everyone can play, and so I would just watch him play that, and that was kind of the one that really sparked the interest in just kind of the slightly fantastical, even especially since they were based in real places. Like it had an Angkor Wat level, it had different levels like the pyramids, things like that. So it was a very, very cool game, and probably my first RPG. I think, I mean, technically, I guess the first one after that would probably be like Pokemon when that came out. But as far as like a turn-based thing, but then Breath of Fire, things like that.
I don't think the internet's gonna like give you shit. Like, it does not necessarily be turn-based to be an RPG. I mean, role-playing game RPG, even a top-down swinging. So I think, as far as I know, that qualifies.
Yeah, but I don't trust the internet.
So now the juicy stuff. Looking right into the camera, Sam, answering my questions. What made you decide to start making your own content. I mean, like I said today, you know, geek is chic. Everyone's on board. Everyone's enjoying it. Everyone's absorb. Attention deficiency. Oh, click. What made you decide to, like, this is what I like, but this is what I want to do, and show everybody that I like it, and put it up there, and, you know, and see how it goes? What made you flip the switch and start creating your own content on the web?
Well, I think it was a combination of quite a few things from all five of us, all the members. Where you've got Weber, one of our guys, who he loves getting into the games and the stories and things like that. And we had been talking about this because we had been listening to different podcasts out there and like really enjoying it. And we started not, I guess, with the intention of necessarily releasing, just kind of trying out by just recording our sessions, just randomly recording our sessions with, you know, the Yeti in the middle of the table, and those will never be released. But because the audio quality in those is awful.
They are not one of my favorite microphones. I've said it before. They're overly sensitive. They cost me $60 in foam that I still have around a room when all you need is a microphone with a much tighter cardio pattern.
Yeah, and that's why we use directional mics.
Now, speaking of microphone, what do you got in front of you right there?
This is it's a Sennheiser. 1 second. It is a Sennheiser E835. I'm not familiar with that. Can you compare that marketably with something a little bit more common? I can. It is the equivalent of, I always forget the actual classification. There's a Shure microphone. I think it's like a M58 or something like that. That is 58? Like, probably. Is
that a dynamic microphone you got in front of you? Or cardio?
Yeah, it's dynamic.
I mean, sorry, a condenser.
No, it's not. Yeah, not a condenser.
Okay. Sorry, our technical geek is showing. The difference, ladies and gentlemen, between a dynamic microphone and a condenser microphone is the dynamics, the ones you see in a live stage. There's a brand called Shure, and it has been the technical standard for like since the 60s and 70s. And there is like a magnetic rod inside of it with a coil around it, and you can scream into this microphone and it won't really peak. And that's the advantage of a dynamic microphone. Whereas a condenser microphone has a flat, thin magnetic plate in it to pick up your voice. And a lot of podcasters gravitate to that to get that smooth radio voice. But the problem is, if you've raised your voice and get excited a lot, like myself, it'll blow out the mic, it'll peak, it'll crackle, you know, and you got to find a happy medium. And one podcaster to another, we're always like, you know, tell me about your gear, because it's always been an uphill battle. We all buy what everybody else has, and then we go, I don't like this. This doesn't work for me. Why? Works for him, doesn't work for me. You got to find your own.
Plus, you have to have the smooth radio voice if you want that sound. And I think that's something I've heard on podcasts before, is people that where you can almost kind of tell that they are artificially, like, yes, you walk into the room and you where
a mixer, like,
yeah, it always sounds better if you just speak clearly, like use good support and diction. But no, I wanted to say, that reminded me. So the Shure microphone you're talking about, the reason why I ended up going with this one is because we, four of the members of the podcast and one of our friends used to be in a metal band, and the microphone that he went with was that Shure 58, whatever
the SM58
numbers.
or whatever. Yeah.
Yes, I always forget it. And when I was doing my research, I was looking at that, and I was looking at kind of similar price rangey things, because it's not a terribly expensive mic, but it is kind of the gold standard for like live performance, like you said. And the reviews that I found for this one basically said it was Sennheiser's version of that, and it was just a very solid directional dynamic microphone, and I've been a big fan of it since I've gotten it.
Sorry, I should add, it's not that the technical quality is fantabulous with the Shure. It is great. It is a standard. It's right up there. But what's kept it up there for 30 years is the mic is incredibly durable.
Yes.
And if you're thinking, you're at a bar and you're doing the thing and there's beer splashing around and like technical equipment, like we are in our den and we're like, don't touch my stuff. The cat's looking at my mic. Don't touch, all very sensitive equipment. You got roadies, they're packing it on a bus. They're ripping it apart. They're putting it on the stage. You need durable equipment. And the Shure is like known to be incredibly durable. And that's what's made it, the industry standard on top of being a decent high quality microphone.
Yeah. And the other reason why we went for dynamics, we all use not this microphone, but we all use dynamic mics, is because we knew we'd be recording in a fairly enclosed room, and we knew that if we had 5 condenser mics without the shielding, without the proper kind of baffling, essentially, that it needs, we would just be echoing all over each other's microphones, and we didn't want that to kind of hamper us as we got started.
Cool. So let's talk about the actual podcast yourself, because you're starting to drop names, guys, in your crew. And if people aren't familiar with the show, I mean, yes, we're here to interview you personally, and we've learned quite a lot already. Let's talk about the show itself. What is your podcast called?
We are the Campaign Notes Podcast.
And what do you run?
We run 2nd edition Pathfinder, and we run a homebrew campaign set in the fictional islands of Nadiria, which we kind of placed into Paizo's map, whether they like it or not.
No, that's cool. That's actually a step up. We've got a Sunday night stream with our fan turn intern Jared Mercer, and he's invented the world of Rotram, and we're just using the rule set. We're just going, look how easy it is to use the 2nd edition rule set, but he's got his own map, his own world, and his own bloodlines and type of thing. You've actually taken something from the map itself. Can you tell us where on the map your little world is?
It's basically like the southwest corner where that starts to hit the ocean. The southwest corner of Galarian.
You know what? I think I got a map here that I can pull
Perfect.
up. Here we go. See this?
Yeah. Okay. It's kind of like it's down below Osirion, like
okay.
Below off the map.
Okay.
Because we didn't want it to be anywhere where it would like interfere with
the politics and.
Yeah, basically where I would have to learn a bunch of stuff about mainland people that I don't want to learn.
Okay. So a remote area, its own bubble culture, and maybe a little bit of trade if you want to use a cool magical item out of the rule book or out of the book. Oh, that's clever. That's cool. I like that. We'll have to have your people talk to my people about doing something like that. So you're running a 2nd edition podcast, which means campaign notes. Now, have you flipped editions? How old is your podcast?
We started almost a year ago at this point, because we're coming up on our 50th episode, and we started with the playtest. We were doing 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, just playing it. We were trying Pathfinder just because we were all interested in trying the 1st edition Pathfinder, and like that is right around the time when the playtest came out. And so we kind of decided, because at that point we're just kind of messing around with recording stuff and just doing it for fun, as opposed to now where we still just do it for fun. And we started to really enjoy ourselves in the playtest, just because of the way it flows. I feel like complements the style that we have pretty well, because it's not quite as rules crunchy as 1st edition is, but it's also not as open as 5th edition. It's a nice middle ground to play in.
Okay. Now we are running a live stream sponsored by Fantasy Grounds. We're so lucky. Shout out to Corey Thomas of Dark Galaxies Gaming that invited us to do the Age of Ashes campaign on his Twitch stream, and then we're taking the footage and we're throwing it up on our YouTube, and taking the audio and making a brand new podcast. And we had so much going on with the network and everything. I picked a guy. And here, read the core book. I know I'm the DM, but you're going to read the core book and be my rules lawyer, and I'm going to read the adventure and worry about all the editing and everything and the casting and all the, coordinating stuff.
Absolutely.
And normally at a table, this would not fly. I mean, the DM's the DM. You don't turn to player one and go, hey, how does this work, right? But on a show where the people are learning and you're learning, it's actually working. So my question for you is, do you DM this? Are you running this?
Yes.
Show? Okay, so because everyone, including yourself, are so new to the rules, right?
Yes.
Do you have that teaching aspect? We kind of do a rules as written, and we try not to bog down the show, but we really are interested, since everyone is so interested in a brand new rule set. As opposed, like first edition, everybody knows it, and you're like, well, some DMs are pretty loosey-goosey, some DMs are like total sticklers and everything, and people gravitate to the one podcast to the other, depending on chemistry and like how verbatim by the book they go. With us,
yes.
It's not like we read a rule and go, oh, I don't like that. We are kind of stuck with our format of going, this is how it's going to go. You have a homebrew world. So you have this great excuse, I'm guessing, to go, wow, this doesn't apply. Like, what kind of approach, I guess I'm asking, do you take to the rule set as you guys are learning it and trying to do your own world? Like, that's
so it is, but I'm lucky enough to also have 4 guys who really enjoy just the mechanics of the game. And so like they were, when second edition released, they were right there with me, like just chomping at the bit, trying to get the rule book and look up, what's changed with my class, what different things have changed. But with the podcast, we do mostly rules as written. But with the caveat of if something feels needlessly obtuse, or if it feels like it's going to slow things down, we will change things. We're not, and mostly because it's not the way I like to DM. Honestly, I don't really like to take 10 minutes with a really kind of weird rule. I'd rather just keep the ball rolling, especially when you're trying to record something that has to fit kind of into a nice tight 55 minutes to an hour 15. You can't really afford to waste a lot of time in there, because you need each episode to have its own significance. Otherwise you're going to have these filler episodes where nothing happens, and you talk about how many squares can you move through if an ally is occupying it, and it's just at a certain point you kind of have to just say like, well, this is just what we're doing, this is how we're going to do it this time. If we find out that we did it wrong, that's fine. You hope it doesn't affect anything major, like player death, anything like that, but at a certain point you just have to kind of take the hands off the reins and see where things fall.
Yeah.
Do
you have fans that write in and say, oh, by the way,
yes,
we noticed this? And no, see, I think that's great. Like, they're not rude about it.
So do we. No,
they're not rude about it.
They're very polite.
Yeah, we actually put out a thing going, hey, we're learning this, and if you see something, there was something came up. One of the guys got his hands on some shoddy Hell Knight armor by scrounging 10 suits together. I got this dwarf wearing Hell Knight armor, and we didn't put together that shoddy was broken. It's like, well, is it broken? No, it's not, just shoddy. It's like, oh, it must be a description. And then someone actually took a picture of the the page and sent it to me, and like, look, this is a thing. I'm like, oh well, thank you, sir. And then we shout out to this guy, and we fix it on the spot, and we're like, then we're sorry, Frank, your armor class and everything. That's great. But they were really cool about it. And like you said, the guy's chomping at the bit, excited about the rules. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Like, you can't cater to one audience when you're putting up a podcast. You got to have a sprinkling. There does need to be some rules discussion. There does need to be, especially in a brand new system.
Absolutely.
And we've been very appreciative that the show, like our show, might drag, because we're also learning Fantasy Grounds. And the first 7 episodes, we keep going, oh, this is a new feature. Hey, everyone, do it like this. Look at my DM, So luckily, the stream for us is like 2 hours, not 1. We have that extra sort of package time to unpack the rules. But now we're in episode 8. Things are flowing along. We're going to put that kind of thing down. And that's my problem. My question now, let's flip it to your problem, is everyone's reading 2nd edition at home, but no one knows anything about your world. So how much time do you spend over or unpacking the lore of your world You mean it's almost like you have the opposite problem as me. It's like, okay, well, let's get on with it. We only have an hour. Let's skip through the rules. But people go, Osirian. The audience goes, I know where that is. Ruby Prince, right? You go, Kabarland, right? And the players go, sure. You mentioned that once, and the audience goes, huh? Because it's a podcast, and then you got to start southeast of the maybe 3 miles off of the coast, and people are just driving, going, what? How do you manage with the presentation?
So a big part of that has been making sure that when I introduce a location, especially a big major location, I try to make it memorable enough where when you mention Vunka, Waylay, wherever, there's an immediate like snap image that comes in your head that's like, even if you don't remember everything about it, like, okay, so this is a normal kind of city, this is a jungle place, this is whatever. I also intentionally try not to get too deep into like, it is exactly 5 nautical miles west and slightly south, because at that point, like, there's no cartographers making maps of this place. Like, it doesn't need to be just to the yard exact. And I like to just keep things very loose in that regard, but also just keep the places memorable, I guess, or at least try to make them memorable, so that they kind of stand on their own. And one of the big things we talked about, I'm a big fan of learning with the player characters and them creating their own legend. It's something that not annoys me, but I don't care for a lot, is when a player comes in with a character who's level 1 and they're like, my paladin has been through this, great war and has slain thousands of foes. Okay, well, he's level 1, so why has he done all that? And I didn't want the places to feel like I was putting them into, there's all these things that have nothing to do with you, but I want to make sure that my lore gets in there. The show is focused on the adventures of the party, and so I want the things that are presented to be relevant to what they're doing, to the things that they're going to go through.
Right on. So it's explore as you go, and like, even though your players and yourself set the path, at least you're giving a little bit of a those along for the ride, the audience can kind of look out the window left and look out the window right, without kind of going, well, what about never mind that.
Exactly.
Going this way. Not a rails thing, but I kind of.
You can always trust that if there's a place you're confused about, like that, you're like, oh well, they keep mentioning this place, but I don't really have any context. Well, we will get there. We will go there eventually, and I think it kind of adds to it that you're hearing about places that you haven't been and you don't have context on, and so you're getting the kind of authentic experience of, okay, so even though I've never been there, I know that this place has like a crime system. They've got like a kind of mafia thing running them, or they do gambling, things like that. Like you start to put pieces together, and then when you actually do arrive at those places, it's like, oh, okay, I see. This is the place that I remember Jethro talking about back in town, and it kind of, for me at least, enhances that feeling of discovering a new place when you have heard of it but haven't actually had it laid out in front of you.
Now, I'm looking at your website here. I love the sort of compass cartography, N for north, and the C that wraps around the compass for campaign notes. That's brilliant. I really love that image.
Huge shout out to our really good friend Scott, who's just a friend of all of us at the podcast, and he did that for us, and we
does he do commissions?
Huge fans. I don't think so. He just did it as kind of a favor, but I'm sure if he watches this, he might start considering it.
Oh yeah, no, I got work for him. We keep making this three dwarves as Charlie's Angels with Pose as joked, and ask, like, literally blatantly, shamelessly going, "Hey, your audience, are you an artist? Send us your, that kind of thing." But the reason I pulled up your website is there a possibility that good old Scotty and you could possibly post your map of your world, even a rough idea, on your website so that fans can, like, you know, catch a glimpse. We're always asked to, like, put our characters on Tumblr and that kind of thing. And that extra interaction, like I said, since you do have your own website, is it a possibility in the future? I mean, I don't want to paint you in a corner here.
It absolutely is. It's actually something we want to do. There it is. It's there. It's a very rough map. It's the original map we drew. It's under gallery and then maps, and it's not organized well. I need to yell at JP about this.
Okay, so there's 3 little bars depicting the possibility of a menu at the top right in white, and when you click that, an actual top-down menu appears, and then we go to maps. You know, I'm wondering if I can cheat. And whoops, I'm having trouble with this. Oh, okay, I got it now. Sorry, you were saying that it's there, but you're working on it. I see. Okay.
Yeah, under gallery, it's there. That's the original map we drew up. We are working on someone kind of drawing a much neater, nicely laid out map for us, but that's what we kind of have right now.
Okay. No, that's cool. I'm gonna see if I can. If I can get this up here right now. No, you know what? You don't get to see it. Sorry, you're just gonna have to go to campaign notes, .com.
Go to campaignnotespodcast.com and you can see all the galleries, all of our battle maps and regular maps, and some character art also drawn by our friend Scott. Yeah, it's worth exploring. Like, instantly, I love the shots of just the maps and the minis. Usually you see a whole bunch of mics and hands, and there's an obscure mini map there. You've kind of like leaned right over and went, poof, this is what's happening in this moment. And you even got the marker kind of leaning in. There's our blue one. Here's our black, erasable. I'm telling you, this is nostalgic for me, man. Like, look at this grid, and they've written all over it, and... yeah, like very simple, here's your room, here's your thing, but just enough detail in the simplified. I love how you go beyond the minis and you're using some household objects. I don't know how many times that we use McDonald's toys and slap down a Teletubby or something going, this is your this is your opponent today. It's one of those things. When we started, we have a bunch of musicians and we have no visual artists on our crew. So my maps are going to be kind of elementary shapes. I got into mini painting, which was fun, and I still do that. But as far as like sitting down and drawing, none of us are any good.
Those are good
at all.
It's simplified. Your imagination fills in the rest. I've seen far worse. Trust me, by my own hand. So let's talk about where your crew actually creates the content. All you and all the guys in North Carolina.
Yes, we are.
And are you guys set up like in a kitchen table, like your classic dining room setup? What do you got going
on? So the first 3 episodes are at the kitchen table, and then we cleared out one of the guest rooms at Matt Weber Rusam at his house and put up baffling and got a couple tables, set those up, and that's where what we use now. And it's very nice to actually just have a dedicated space, because then we can also leave our stuff set up. We can have everything set to go, so when we come over to record, we can just jump in and just get right to it.
That's good. So you said your show is a little over a year and a half?
No, we're coming up on a year now.
Oh, coming up a year. Now, is this your first show? How long have you been creating content?
It is our first show. This is kind of our first foray into the internet as content creators, and it's been fun. We've gotten a surprising amount of positive feedback, which is always nice.
Do you attend conventions and gatherings where like fans can meet you, and if so, where?
We had a couple guys go to GalaxyCon in Raleigh, North Carolina. I think that was about a month ago, or maybe 2 months. And we're hoping to, as more things start coming, go around to different places. We think that'd be a lot of fun, honestly.
Have you ever considered maybe doing a live show, like a panel?
should the event arise that makes sense, yes, we will do that. Because I mean, it's one of the reasons why we started, is because at the end of the day, most of us anyway have some background in performance, and there's kind of nothing better than producing something that you made and you worked on and releasing that to people.
Oh yeah, no, like we'll always bitch about the editing, but you're sitting there alone, and when you find the right music to in post edit to just really bring out what the guys are talking about, or you edit something together, and you delete that cringy moment and it flow, type of thing. There's that feeling has kept me going for like 3 years. Just it's so much fun. Exhausted, but having the time of my life. So let's talk about social media. Where can we find time for this? This is the list of shameless plugs now, Sam. Get it all out there in one. Where can we find you? I know I found you on Twitter.
Yep. I'm used to doing this at the top of the episode. You can find us over at campaignnotespodcast.com. That's our standard website. You can also find us on Twitter at Campaign Notes or Instagram at Campaign Notes Podcast. We also have a community Discord. If you go to our website, you'll see a little thing you can click. Join that if you want to just talk, hang out. We're usually in and out of there pretty regularly. So if you have a question, you can always we have a drop us a line link also on the website, which is where when you were talking about people sending in kind of rules clarifications that we asked about, that's where people have done that, and we love to get that, because we can also read out on the show and discuss if they brought up something interesting or asked a question. We can kind of use our intro segment for that, which has been nice, because it means I don't have to always think about some way to fill 5 minutes before we actually get into the actual episode.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So a couple of optional questions here to round us up here, if you don't mind me asking. We kind of jumped into the technical aspect because I have another guest / trainee in the wings, and I forgot some of the behind the curtain pre-interview things going, can I ask you this? Are we going over this type of thing? Do you mind if I ask you, what do you do for a living?
Oh, sure. I just graduated college with my degree in sociology, and am still working my college job, which is just at Panera Bread. But I'm very lucky to be engaged to a very successful is the right word technically, but
dude, don't choke when you're talking about the girlfriend. If you got to think about it, you're already killed. I'm sure she's beautiful, wise, the love of his life, all this.
Well, it's more she has a master's in vocal performance, and she is able to supply us with enough to live for right now while I'm still working just kind of a college job.
Is she in the show?
She is not. She could be if she wanted to be, but that's not something that's gonna interest her at all.
No, I've been doing this for it took us a year to get off the ground. We've been posting for 2, and only a month or so ago did I get my wife finally in front of a microphone, because she really didn't like the idea of, she likes playing with me all the time, gaming, a private game, but get them, oh yeah honey, this will be great, this won't be a train wreck, and you get them in front of the microphone, and then there's the pre-show, the during the show, and the after the show, and you're like, I'm now everything I do for here is now, yes, we are doing this, so
yeah,
it's a
that was
slippery slope, dude. Nothing makes me happier than having my wife on the show. But
it was one of the reasons why we ended up starting this whole thing, is because we sat down and thought, honestly, we are funny enough and we have good enough chemistry between the 5 of us that someone out there will enjoy listening to this. Even if it's just our friends and family. Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons why it's the 5, and we don't really have anyone, we don't have rotating guests or anything like that, and not that there's anything wrong with that. I want to make sure I'm not trying to put down other podcasts, because that can be it can be wonderful, but it's the 5 of us, and that's just the way it is. That's just how we well, and we know what each other is like at the table. That's one of the things I really get into as a DM is kind of understanding my players' different mindsets and being able to kind of predict what certain players playing certain types of characters are going to do. And with my crew of 4 players, I am fairly well in tune with them, and so it makes it a lot easier, especially because I'm a big proponent of not over preparing as far as DMing goes. I think preparation is great, and you should do however much it takes for you to be comfortable running the game. But one of the things that always made DMing fun for me was that improvisational aspect, and that's what I wanted, and that's easiest to do with just those 4 guys.
Right on. So last question from Mr. Sam McIntyre. What do you have going on in the future? Is there, taking it up in the next season, more map to explore, a new continent, another show maybe, or what do you got on the horizon for us?
Well, there's definitely more map to explore because they've, I think at this point, been to like 4 islands, and there's much more going on and mysteries that they must unravel. So the main show will continue along the exact same way because we like consistency, honestly. We have been throwing around the idea of starting a second show, be that RPG or just kind of just standard comedy, just kind of like a talk radio show almost. But we don't want to commit to anything like that until we actually have sat down, kind of figured it out. It's one of the things about our group. Like, we probably, before we released episode 1 of our actual podcast, we probably recorded about maybe 50 testers just doing like practice runs of, and not like specifically sitting down like we're gonna do a practice, we're gonna do a dress rehearsal, but playing the games we were playing anyway and just recording them and just pretending like, okay, act like you're gonna send this onto the internet, go like. And so we like to be prepared for things when we do them, and so
no, that's good. That is very admirable. Yeah. Like, my crew and myself still struggle with what they call mic discipline because half of our cast take it serious, half are like, sure, we just want to play, dude. We're you put a mic in front of me. No, I'm good. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to play, podcast, whatever. And then they play, and then the mic,
Yeah, they're leaning forward to check their dice and talking over here.
Oh yeah. Got foot tappers. We got beard scratchers.
Oh yeah.
We got just
God, scratching a beard into a microphone is just the worst.
But life happens. I mean, like, you can't take this so seriously. Like, you're not in a studio. If you're in a guy's house, there's a dog, there's a baby, there's a something. We try to play it off like fun. Somebody's dog goes off, we're like, and hyenas in the distance, or somebody makes a noise. We can usually, you play it off, and the audience appreciates that. Like I said, the improvisational.
Thank
you, improvisational aspect is
it's still a game.
Yeah, and you could sell the podcast, because you're having fun, the audience is having fun.
Yeah. It was one of the things that when we were starting, we really wanted to stick on. Is just like, especially since I was the DM, I'm like, I don't want to write like a story that is out of the gate just like, and there's death and skeletons and death again and blood. Like, there had to be some kind of levity in order to make the eventual story moments later more significant. And that's what I never want to like tune into a podcast first episode and be bummed out. Like, I can enjoy a well-told story for sure, but there has to be ebbs and flows. Even if you start out very kind of grim dark, it needs to at some point come back. Otherwise you're just like, God, this is a depressing podcast or TV show, whatever.
Yeah, like Dark World could be Dark Humor World too, guys. Like, just get into it. There's 2 shows out there. One's called Lucifer, one's called The Boys, and these are dark subjects. One's about the devil in LA, right? But the scripting, the casting, and the subtle levity that goes along with it, it really sells the show.
Yeah.
I've been speaking with Sam McIntyre from the Campaign Notes 2nd edition, but Homebrew World. What was the name of the world?
Nadiria. We call it the Southern Crown.
Nadiria, the Southern Crown. Sam, so thank you so much for being on the show today. And please, guys, there's not a lot of 2nd edition content out there. Yes, there's my content. I really hope you do enjoy it, but I want you to check out Sam's stuff because I did, and I like it.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty. See, if the man says so himself. I'm glad I'm not the only one with the shameless self promo. Sam, thank you so much for being on the show, and we will see you all next time.
Thank you very much.
On Attack of Opportunity.